The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
A day unlike any other in the trial of three men accused of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery.
We don't want any more black pastors coming in here, or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week.
Marked by a racially loaded request by defense attorney Kevin Goff, at one point misidentifying Reverend Al Sharpton, who had been in the courtroom Wednesday to support the Arbery family.
We want to keep politics out of this case. So I'm asking the court to take appropriate steps to make sure that the gallery, which is already limited in this case, isn't being utilized for a purpose that could be viewed as improper.
Goff objected to nationally recognized civil rights leaders sitting in the courtroom besides the victim's family. The judge seemingly confused about what the defense wanted.
What is the motion? It's not really a motion. It's a reminder of the court's previous instructions to keep outside influences outside the courtroom.
From state?
It's a public courtroom.
At one point, Goff's argument made a bizarre, racially charged turn.
If a bunch of folks came in here dressed like Colonel Sanders with white masks sitting in the back, I mean, that would be improper.
And Judge Timothy Walmsley cut him off, dismissing the request.
As long as things are not disruptive and it's not a distraction to the jury or anything else going on in the courtroom, so be it. I'm not going to blanketly exclude members of the public from this courtroom.
In a case where race has played a central role from the beginning, the request from the defense touched a nerve.
I'm very surprised to know that he frowned upon anybody, any pastor that would come in to sit with the family to keep us encouraged. It was just very insensitive.
You think? The hell is that about? What was that about? I mean, wait, somebody in the South is going to have to explain to me and probably to you, Brett, right? What is the Colonel Sanders with white masks reference?
I mean, I think it's very interesting, and I'd love to know the psychology behind him feeling that Colonel Sanders would be the opposite of Al Sharpton. What? They're opposites? Oh.
I didn't even understand the reference, and I like references. So somebody's going to have to explain to me, what does, if you had a guy dressed like Colonel Sanders with a white mask, would that be okay means? What does that mean? I don't know, but you know something, there's been 3 trials going on simultaneously this week, and it has really pushed us to the limit here because we're a small little crew. And I have to tell you that these 3 trials all have to do with politics. They all have to do with race. They all have to do with hatred. They all have to do with long guns. And it's overwhelming. Now, again, I keep telling you, look, we have a tiny, tiny little minority in this country that are legitimately racist, that are truly carrying around this fear of being a minority in a minority country, that are in fear that somebody's going to replace them, that are in fear of people of different religions and people of different colors and people, whatever. I mean, we have that little sliver. But again, if it's 3.5 million people that are, subscribing to, hey, it's time I take the law into my own 17-year-old hands, or hey, it's time I take the law into my own daddy's hands, and we get in our cars and we trap this guy like a rat and we shoot his freaking chest off with a shotgun at close range, then we're looking at about 3.5 million trials like these. The one that's not getting any coverage because it's not on the video, it's just audio streaming, is the Charlottesville trial. And the Charlottesville trial, again, it has to do with, the race and hatred and fear of others. The whole replacement theory was screamed at the Unite the Right rally, right? Jews will not replace us and blah, blah, blah. And so there's a civil case going on there against the 20 organizers of the Unite the Right rally. And if you listen to the audio from that, I think it would be hair-raising for any decent, right-minded, normal American. It would just be hair-raising because you have the neo-Nazis literally representing themselves. And in real time, every time, somebody, one of the plaintiffs that brought the case against these 20 organizers is asked a personal question about, who else was there with you? And the people don't want to answer because they're afraid to say the names of their friends, okay, who were attacked by the Unite the Right crowd, because in real time, those people are being doxxed online by the trolls who are listening to the streaming audio from Charlottesville. I mean, this whole country is, we're dealing with a lot. We're all dealing with a lot. We had a pandemic. We still have spikes in COVID in places where the unvaccinated are still able to infect people. We have, inflation is what they're calling it. It's not really inflation. I would like to know how you're dealing with it. I would like to know how you're coping with it. Because I tell you the truth, I see it too. I feel it too. I went to fill up my car. My car takes 15 gallons of gas, and to fill it up was $60. And, it's pretty amazing. And then, I went food shopping. I go every Saturday, and I do my mom's food shopping and my food shopping in the same food shop. I look like I work for Instacart, right? Because I have to have everything separated so I know which is hers, so I could bring her hers. So we put that in paper, and then mine is in the recyclable bag, whatever. But the cost of groceries, it's my grocery bill is for the two of us, okay? It's almost $300 now. It's almost $300. So, yes, I feel it and I see it. But I understand why it's happening, and I don't know if everybody does. I don't know if anybody does. It just depends on whether or not you read a newspaper and which one. Because I will tell you, the Wall Street Journal, they had the most incredible article it was like 2 weeks ago. It was October 24th. And it was a big, big Wall Street Journal article on how U.S. companies aren't seeing any pushback by us, the consumers, as they raise their prices to see just how much we'll take from them. And it's diapers, it's like Procter & Gamble. It's the Nestle company that does all the packaged food and the coffees. It's, they're doing it on purpose. I mean, literally, they're doing it because we're flush with cash and we're flush with jobs, and still it's not good enough for people who hate. It's just not good enough, right? Because prices are high. But it's so interesting that the corporations themselves that don't have very much competition, that they are out there literally jacking up the prices on purpose to see just what the threshold is before we as consumers leave the brands that we have been marketed to and start buying the same item but cheaper, but not trusting that item because we haven't been marketed to about that particular brand of diaper or that particular brand of paper towel or that particular brand of toilet paper or that particular coffee. Seriously, that is what this article said. It says U.S. companies bet shoppers will keep paying higher prices. And that is the Wall Street Journal. So it's just so interesting how corporate doesn't seem to want to cooperate with Biden. They don't want to cooperate with the American recovery. They figure because wages are up, they figure because we got some stimulus money, which, by the way, Kyle Rittenhouse, you know how he bought his gun? Those guns are expensive. You know how he paid for it? Well, he didn't buy it. He had somebody buy it for him. Yeah, he got a stimulus check, a COVID stimulus check. And that's how he went out and bought his gun, with the Trump stimulus money. Yeah. But anyway, it's like so amazing how all the forces of evil, all the forces of, I want mine, I need more, gimme, I want to have the corporate, it's pushing us to the brink. And we're there.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
After After a long and laborious selection process, a nearly all-white jury has been chosen to decide the fate of the 3 white men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery, a black man. Greg McMichael and his adult son, Travis McMichael, armed themselves and hunted Arbery down in their pickup truck after they spotted the 25-year-olds jogging in their neighborhood in coastal Georgia. A neighbor, William Bryan, joined the chase in his own truck and took a cell phone video of Travis McMichael shooting Arbery 3 times with a shotgun. On Wednesday, a judge ruled that he'd seat the only 1 black juror and 11 white jurors, despite prosecutors' objections that several black potential jurors were cut because of their race. Superior Court Judge Timothy Walmsley even acknowledged this.
This court has found that there appears to be intentional discrimination in the panel.
But said Georgia law limited his authority to intervene.
Get out of
Arbery's
here.
mother called the results, quote, devastating. At the start of the jury selection process, she admitted she had concerns.
Being that the jurors will be picked from this community,
but was trying to remain hopeful.
that we'll get the right people in the right place to make the right decision.
So, and obviously, the judge said there was intentional discrimination in the panel, okay, in the jury selection process, okay? And yet he said he was powerless to do anything about it. Now the defense is literally standing up and objecting to the presence in an open courtroom, okay? It's open to the public, right? They're objecting to the presence of either Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or Reverend Barber. The white defense attorney, he doesn't know the difference between these, civil rights leaders / black pastors. He can't tell one from the other. They all look alike. This is really twisted, and it's being said out loud. It's being said on TV. It's being said in the media. It's being said nationally. It's being said where you can hear it. And the truth be told, this all-white jury wouldn't recognize a black civil rights pastor if you paid them. But apparently in Brunswick, Georgia, where you can kill a jogger, an unarmed jogger, with your shotgun at close range, with your daddy in the bed of your truck and your friend Roddy filming the whole thing behind you in his car, in Brunswick, Georgia, where apparently it's still a crime, but, ever so slightly it's still a crime. They have a black pastor limit at trials. Do they have a white pastor limit too? Maybe they do, because Brett said to me, do they object to white pastors also? And I said, I was thinking about the answer. The correct answer, probably it has to be a shaman. You know that Jacob Chansley, the shaman of the QAnon movement, oh my God, the court is being asked to give him 4 or 5 years. And this week we had another guy who beat a cop. He's a New Jersey dude who fancied himself an MMA fighter once upon a time. He smashed a cop in the face, and he got 41 months. So that's like 3.5 years in prison. So all the low-level, miscreants, they've been sentenced, and people were outraged at the low amount of time that each of these insurrectionists got. And they were charged for things like trespassing. Now we're building up to the major violent offenders, and it's starting to look like some of them might get some real time, and wouldn't that be special in America? Because, they're all white boys. It's White Boy Day. It was White Boy Day January 6th. In Brunswick, Georgia, it's always White Boy Day. Kenosha, Wisconsin, it's been White Boy Week. Actually, it's been White Boy Year, because Kyle Rittenhouse was able to raise $500,000 online to pay for these attorneys. It's just, it's so strange. It's so, and any bit of evidence that would go to show the motivation that Kyle Rittenhouse has for being there or for hating protesters. you know, it blew away in the judge's rulings. It just evaporated. And yet the judge allowed, I don't know if you realize this, but two of the people who testified in the last 2 days, two of the people, one was a videographer named McGinnis, who felt he was in fear of his life because Kyle was shooting at Rosenbaum and he was in the line of fire. Turns out he works for the Daily Caller. And then another guy works for something called Real America News, Riot Squad. Yeah. And the defense wanted to ask him, you know, like, why do you think you're a journalist? What is it about you that makes you think that you're a fact-checking journalist when clearly what he presented was manipulated video? His video was selectively edited. And it's working. It's working. It works on the Twitter. It works on the Facebook. It works on the social media. It works on the Getter, Gab, you know, all that. People actually believe that the videos that they're watching weren't selectively edited. And it's just like, you know, you can't really, you know, explain to them that these people came with bad motives to begin with. But that, you know, listen, Rosenbaum, no matter what you think of him, he's dead, and he's dead because a vigilante made him dead. A vigilante who didn't know him from Adam, a vigilante that didn't know him at all, decided that, you know, instead of running, instead of a fist fight, instead, you know, he had a long gun, and he was going to use it. I mean, everything is so out of proportion in this country. Even the reaction by the Republicans. Okay, I don't know if you, you know, we started this week with a clip of Fred Upton, a Republican from Michigan. And we played you the one threat that he made available to the media that was on his Washington, D.C. office machine. I don't know, you know, his voicemail, right? And it was disgusting. I mean, the guy was cursing and screaming and, you know, I want you dead and I want to see your family dead and I hope your staffers die and I want you to die and you should, you know, bleed from the eyeballs or whatever. Or I'm going to come there and I'm going to mash your eyeballs out. I'm going to stick my finger in you. I'm going to mash them, whatever. Well, it turns out that that is one of 1,000 messages that were left on Fred Upton's voicemail. It was one of 1,000 messages. And the amount of hatred that's on an issue that typically is bipartisan, I don't see how a road or a pothole has a party affiliation the way that a guy who calls himself the Riot Squad, who works for a streaming video channel called Real America, has a partisan bent. But apparently Rhodes now do, and Bridges now do. They're affiliated with the Democrats because the Democrats are the people who fought to pass a bipartisan infrastructure package to do 30 years worth of deferred maintenance and end the old Brown deal and start a Green New Deal for America. And the disproportional amount of hatred that is being hurled at the 13 House Republicans who voted to pass this after the bipartisan Senate passed it is outrageous.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
In the Arbery situation, there is a jury that is, you know, jury. So 12 active members, 4 alternates. That's 16 people. Only one of those jurors is black. Now, that's weird because in Brunswick, Georgia, where the trial is taking place, that county is 26% black. The defense attorneys, while using their preemptory challenges to exclude black jurors and exclude black jurors, said that that jury, that what he needed to defend his clients, the people who lynched Ahmaud Arbery, was that his jury needed more bubbas. Bubbas. And he defined bubbas as white men over 40 with no college education. The judge said that he saw evidence of intentional racial discrimination in the jury selection, but denied the plaintiff's motion the prosecution's motion to reseat the jury, which was in his power to do, because he said that he was bound to accept the disingenuous answers offered by the defense. He was not bound to do that. He could have. That's why we had the challenge. He could have, in his discretion, resat the jury. But no. The judge decided that the 15-1 jury in a 26% black county, that was okay, and let the trial go forward.
And that is a real quote. That is a real quote from the man that objected to all these black pastors. There's too many black pastors. Apparently, there's a black pastor limit in Brunswick, Georgia. I don't know about white pastors. I'm guessing they would have to be shamans, and they would have to wear, some sort of a horn apparatus on their head and to be acceptable to this defense attorney, Kevin Gow. But it's a real quote. I mean, that was in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It was an actual quote from the same attorney who objected to the black pastors, who confused Al Sharpton with Jesse Jackson. How do you even get there? I don't even understand it. But anyway, yes, that's a real quote. That's something that this guy, Kevin Gow, said to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He said, we don't want any more black pastors coming in here. Oh, no, the Bubba thing? Yeah, no, he said that he wants more Bubbas and more Joe lunch buckets. And the judge asked him to define that, and he said he meant white men under 40 with no college education. That's what he said. And on this black pastors thing, the judge actually said to him, wait. So there's not even a motion in front of me. What do you want me to do about your black pastor problem? He said, I'm not just going to, randomly shut the courthouse doors to anybody from the public. I'm just not going to do that. And I don't have a motion in front of me. Well, the defense attorney actually has come back and said, I will let the court know I will let the court know that if my statements yesterday were overly broad, I will follow up with a more specific motion on Monday, putting those concerns in the proper context. And here's his non-apology apology. My apologies to anyone who might have inadvertently been offended. Oh, I hate when people do that. I hate when people apologize to you and they go, well, I'm sorry if I offended you. Well, the only reason why we're having this conversation where I'm seeking an apology is because obviously you offended me. So what do you mean you apologize? It's like a provisional apology. Well, if I offended you, then I apologize. It's like the Second Amendment, right? It is. It's a provisional amendment. But I just, so Monday there's going to be some sort of a motion, and I'm guessing the motion on Monday will say we can have black pastors, but they have to sit in the back of the courtroom, or we can have black pastors, but only if they're the defendant. I mean, what is the motion going to be? What is the motion going to be? We could have black pastors, but we can only have one at a time, or we can only have two for the whole trial. We have to set a black pastor limit, or maybe it's we can't have any black pastors who have been on MSNBC, or maybe it's we can't have any black pastors who have been on CNN, or maybe it's we can't have any uppity black pastors, and you all know what I mean by that. He's actually going to introduce a motion on Monday to clarify what he means he wants the court to do in reaction to too many black pastors. And yes, he did say that there weren't enough bubbas on the jury. There weren't enough bubbas on the jury. What is going on? We have a judge in the Rittenhouse case in Kenosha whose ringtone is Donald Trump's campaign theme song, who actually makes jokes about his Chinese food better not be coming from Asia because it'll get stuck on a boat at the Long Beach dock. We have a judge in the Rittenhouse trial who doesn't understand what a sidebar is. See, this is another thing that's been left out of the entire conversation about the judge in the Rittenhouse case who keeps melting down, who keeps losing it. He's a 74-year-old get off my lawn type guy who is obviously pro Kyle Rittenhouse's defense team, who is obviously, giving every ruling that the defense would hope and pray and need to have in order to exclude, in order to omit, in order to not question, the motivation of either Kyle Rittenhouse, the motivation of the guy who writes for the Daily Caller, the guy who streams for the Real America News YouTube channel, which is his YouTube channel. Right. So we have that, right? We have all that going on by this judge in the Rittenhouse case. We've got an exclusionary judge in the Arbery. And people want to know why. Why are people protesting and demanding reform of the justice system? Why are we asking for reform? Why do we want justice reform on our side of the conversation? Why do people like me want? Because clearly there are several justice systems, not just two, not just the white one and the black one, but there's the poor one and the rich one, and then there's the well-connected one. So that's at least 5 different systems of applying justice. Because today we know that Mark Meadows, former congressman, former Donald Trump chief of staff, who was on the phone, organized the phone call, where Donald Trump asked the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, to cheat for him. And we know that because they record, everybody's recording everybody. So that was a recorded phone call. And the guy at the front of that phone call said, everybody's on the line. This is Mark Meadows, chief of staff to President Trump. Please go ahead. So we know Mark Meadows was on that phone call and heard Donald Trump ask Brad Raffensperger to cheat for him. We also know Mark Meadows was with Donald Trump on January 6th every minute of that day. And he defied a subpoena today.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
What I know is the law, and what I know is what white people are willing to do to defend white supremacy. If you look at this judge, if you look at his pretrial motions, if you look at his pretrial decisions in this case, remember, Rittenhouse has been in and around the jail since he shot those people in Wisconsin last summer. So if you look at all the decisions that Bruce Schroeder has made, they have been heavily balanced and weighted towards Rittenhouse, towards his defense. I see very few neutral decisions in his history. What we have is a judge who, from my perspective, has prejudged the trial in favor of Rittenhouse and has decided, again, even at the pretrial stage, to use every bit of his power to put his thumb on the scale towards Rittenhouse's side. And that was obvious before the trial started. I think now that the trial is going on, it's a little even more obvious to people how hostile he is to the prosecution, how much he's taking Rittenhouse's side, and how he is slanting the whole case. He's basically not allowing the prosecution to put on its case against Rittenhouse. It's almost like he wants the prosecution to put on a different case against Rittenhouse, and already has determined that the man is that the boy is not guilty. So that's why I was able to say 2 weeks ago the boy was going to walk, and nothing that's happened in the trial so far has changed my opinion on that.
So that's Elie Mystal, and he's a very, 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 very big thinker. He's a legal big brain, and he's seeing what we're seeing, and he's watching it through the lens of a lawyer. He's watching it with a knowledge of the legal statutes at play, the ones that they're quoting. And you know what's really twisted is that this judge in the Rittenhouse trial doesn't understand what a sidebar is for. Now, for those of you who watch trials or you're true crime fans or whatever, you know that when you watch trials, especially if your only frame of reference is the OJ trial, okay? The OJ trial, there were so many sidebars that, you know, as a person who was doing it live, I was on the air in 1995, 6, whenever that was going on too, and carrying that trial live. And there were so many sidebars that you had to actually be inserting yourself to comment on what this line of questioning was likely to produce or show, or why they were going down this, this road, right? So there was a lot of opportunity to comment during that trial because there were so many sidebars. Now, a sidebar is when the judge believes that there's a justiciable issue, right, that the jury shouldn't be privy to, or the jury shouldn't see or hear. And so he quietly, he tells the lawyers from both sides to approach the bench, right? And he has a conversation with the lawyers at the bench with the microphones turned off, out of the earshot of the cameras in the courtroom, out of the eyeballs of the cameras in the courtroom. And if it gets very heated, then he dismisses the jury or asks the jury to leave, and he'll call them back. Well, this judge does get rid of the jury, because if he didn't, the appeals court that looks at the procedure would just say, this was a circus. This was crazy. I can't believe he did this in front of the jury, but he is doing some of it in front of the jury. The other part is that he does it for the cameras. The jury may be out of the room, but we're watching. The whole country is watching, and we could hear him. We can hear him. We can see him. And he knows that. And he's still making Asian, racist jokes. And he's still, sitting there, talking about, hey, everybody, it's Veterans Day. I don't know if you caught this little thing. This. I believe he didn't intend for this to play out the way it did, but he's such a careless man, this judge. He feels so superior to everybody because he's been a judge for so freaking stinking long. Again, he's 74 years old. He has run unopposed for his position for, 20 years, unopposed. Okay, so he feels, like completely bulletproof, untouchable. Nobody can do nothing to him, right? And so he was sitting there and he was trying to recognize people like me, right? And maybe you. Yesterday was Veterans Day. And so he was telling the courtroom, he asked the courtroom, are there any veterans here? If there are, please raise your hand. Right. There were no veterans there. Are there any veterans in the jury? Please raise your hand. No veterans there either. Then the only connection he could make to a veteran was apparently the next witness, who was an expert witness called by the defense, paid witness, to testify to use of force matters, as if there's a question about whether or not a kid with an illegal AR-15 has the right to shoot an unarmed, shirtless man. And the fact that Rosenbaum was shirtless tells you he was unarmed, who obviously was not in his right mind. But whether or not it was okay to use your gun at close range instead of, if there was no gun, it would have been a fist fight, right? Everybody knows that. But it was a gun, and this kid was 17, and this kid was carrying an illegal AR-15, and he did, at close range, blow Rosenbaum away. And this use of force expert apparently was a veteran, or, is a veteran. And so what happened here was, because the judge is so careless, the jury and the courtroom ended up applauding a witness who was about to testify because he was the only veteran that anybody could find in the courtroom.
I wanted to just observe that it's Veterans Day. And any veterans in the room, on the jury or anywhere else? Well, that's unusual not to have at least somebody in here. But Dr. Black is...
Dr. Black.
What branch?
Army, sir.
Okay, and I think we give a round of applause to the people who've served our country. Okay, so you may proceed.
Defense will call Dr. John Black to the witness stand.
Oh my God. So he created a situation in his courtroom where the jury in the gallery and himself as judge ends up applauding the defense paid expert witness who's going to offer testimony. I mean, this courtroom is so bizarre. But again, we all know, people commonly believe that there are two systems of justice, the black one and the white one. But I would love to call your attention to the fact that I can find at least 5 systems of justice in this here country. Not just the black one, not just the white one, but the poor one, the rich one, the white collar one, right? And now the well-connected one. This today is so shockingly sickening. So today, Mark Meadows, who obviously could testify to the cheating that Donald Trump actually was suborning from the Secretary of State in Georgia again, he was on the phone, and also Mark Meadows was with Donald Trump the whole day, January 6th, the whole day. So he knows whether or not Donald Trump was watching these violent freaks break windows, beat police officers with everything from, people going, hey, a skateboard could be a deadly weapon. Yes, so can a crutch. And so can a flagpole. Even if it's a Blue Lives Matter flagpole? Yes, even if it's a blue. And Donald Trump, Meadows would know the state of mind of Donald Trump that day. Whether Donald Trump was excited and happy to see this violence and the hunting of Mike Pence, or whether or not Donald Trump was at his wit's end and flying around the White House with his hair on fire going, how do we stop this? How do we stop this? Right? Well, he was supposed to go behind closed doors. Nobody was going to, put him in the public arena and ask him questions out loud, so America could hear. No, they were going to do a closed door deposition today, Congress was, of Mark Meadows and what he could explain to the select committee, the January 6th select committee. What he could explain was Donald Trump's state of mind that day. Except he decided to defy the subpoena. He just didn't show up. He just said through his lawyer that he wasn't going to appear today, as if it was like a choice. And did some marshal go and place him under arrest the way it would happen to you or me if we defied a subpoena to appear in court or to appear for a deposition? No, the select committee is going to have to vote, and then the full House is going to have to vote to hold him in contempt, and then it'll have to go to the Justice Department, who will then decide if they want to proceed, and then convene a grand jury, and then have a trial, and then...
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Is your democracy flaccid? Trouble maintaining a strong coalition? Tired of the parade of disappointing performances? Then you might be one of the 330 million Americans suffering from electile dysfunction.
I get all excited about a new bill.
The debate gets all hot and heated.
We'll move things to the floor.
And right when we're about to achieve a joint resolution, bam.
Total government shutdown.
Premature capitulation.
I don't know, every time I get an election, I think, maybe this time will be different.
Filibustering just doesn't make me feel good anymore.
It's embarrassing, okay?
Fortunately, there's the Freedom to Vote Act.
The Freedom to Vote Act?
What's the Freedom to Vote Act?
The Freedom to Vote Act, what does that mean?
The Freedom to Vote Act ends your tired, sagging, floppy relationship with politics by making Election Day a holiday across the country, banning gerrymandering, expanding voter access, increasing integrity, blocking foreign interference, empowering everyday citizens, and healing our democracy.
Now my election is rock solid, and it works everywhere.
Oh, it works everywhere.
And it's safe.
It used to take me forever to find the location. To vote.
But with the FTVA, we have all day to get to the polls.
And it only takes 2 minutes.
Which I prefer, honestly.
She really does.
The Freedom to Vote Act is only for democracies healthy enough for electoral activity. Talk to your representative if you are experiencing greased palms, lined pockets, dictators, neo-fascists, or other pre-existing conditions, as you may not be healthy enough for the FTVA. Passing FTVA may cause an increase in being heard, power, a full expression of your inalienable rights, representation, and a rare federal condition called accountability. If you experience voting lines that last over 4 hours, call your senator, as they have not passed the FTVA. Talk to your senator about the Freedom to Vote Act and demand safer and more satisfying elections today.
A listener actually sent me that. So thank you very much.
That was amazing. That had some star power, too. Jake Johnson and Mark Ruffalo, that had some star power.
It did. It also had one of the Property Brothers. I don't know which one because they're twins and I cannot tell the difference. I guess it was Jonathan because his name was on the screen. But yeah, and we need the protection. We do. We need the protection because here is some breaking news. This was Steve Bannon on the War Room, his stupid, internet thing.
You want to talk about thugs? It's the New York Times are thugs. And here's what, we're not complaining about it more. Remember, there are no whining and no tears in the War Room.
Told you.
We're taking action. And that action is we're taking over school boards. We're taking over the Republican Party through the precinct committee strategy. We're taking over all the elections. Suck on this. 95% of the billets in Virginia were occupied of election officials and poll watchers, and that is a principal reason that we secured the election of Youngkin, okay? And they know it, and that's all. He's getting all these, anti-Democrat. No, they're there to have a free and fair count, and we're going to continue that. And we're going to get to the bottom of 3 November, and we're going to decertify the electors, okay? And you're going to have a constitutional crisis, but you know what? We're a big and tough country, and we can handle that. We'll be able to handle that. We'll get through that.
He was just indicted. Yay! Popped him. Yeah, Steve Bannon was just indicted. Apparently, Merrick Garland did have a grand jury convened to hear the case of Steve Bannon not showing up, of contempt of Congress, right? And the grand jury just indicted him. They indicted him. But what does that mean for us? What does that mean for me? For me, George Hahn, I love him. For me, it doesn't mean anything. And for you, it doesn't mean anything. What it means is Steve Bannon has been indicted by a D.C. grand jury with contempt of Congress, 1 count of contempt of Congress for a deposition, and 1 count for refusal to produce documents that were subpoenaed. So now he's presumed innocent until a court of law finds him guilty of the indictable crime. So you see what I mean? This is why I keep telling you that Congress needs to enforce its own damn subpoenas. Like today, Mark Meadows did exactly what Steve Bannon just did. And why did Mark Meadows refuse to show up? Well, according to his lawyer, he didn't show up because the court hasn't weighed in on whether or not the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, cannot extend executive privilege to Donald Trump if he doesn't want to, and therefore Donald Trump is just a citizen now and he has to comply with all subpoenas, meaning document requests, etc. And the reason why Mark Meadows' lawyer was able to say, well, we want the court to weigh in before Mark Meadows shows up for his deposition is because the court yesterday, the D.C. Court of Appeals yesterday said The district court that said that Donald Trump does have to comply with subpoenas, that there is no executive privilege for Donald Trump. The judge at the district level who said that the president of the United States is Joe Biden and the president of the United States is not Donald Trump. And the president of the United States, Joe Biden, has the sole authority to exert executive privilege. And that Donald Trump, since he's not the president of the United States, can't exert executive privilege over the documents that have since been transferred to the National Archives because he's not the president anymore. So now Donald Trump appeals it to the appeals court. 3-judge panel, U.S. Appeals Court of D.C. And the U.S. Appeals Court of D.C. said, listen, we're not saying that Donald Trump is president. We're not saying he can exert executive privilege. We're not saying anything on the merits of the case. What we're doing is we're preserving our jurisdiction by saying we will hear Donald Trump's claim of executive privilege. We're just preserving our role. We have a role to play as an appeals court, and we want to play. So let them come to us, the Trump people, and let them make their failing argument that has failed miserably because we all know the Supreme Court has said, the district court has said, every court in America has said that executive privilege does not belong to a person. They've said it since Nixon, okay? That executive privilege does not belong to a person. It belongs to the office of the presidency, and it only exists so that the current president can get unvarnished advice from anybody that works with him in the executive branch. Donald Trump is not the president. He's certainly not a king. He certainly has no claim to executive privilege, but we're not weighing in on the merits. We're just saying that we are a court in the line of jurisdiction. We're the next one above the district court. We're the one below the Supreme Court. And we want to allow for oral arguments to preserve our jurisdiction. So they gave Donald Trump a hearing date of November 30th. They're going to hear the same old arguments from the Trump lawyers that the Trump lawyers made to the district court that failed so miserably in a 39-page opinion by the district court where she clearly quotes the Supreme Court and clearly quotes Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is now on the appeals court and was put there by Joe Biden, who said, no, we have jurisdiction here. We have a role to play. We're going to give them an oral argument on November 30th. But the judge at the district level, Chutkin, actually quoted Ketanji Brown Jackson when she said presidents are not kings and Donald Trump is not the president. So we know what Ketanji Brown Jackson thinks about all this, but still they're going to hear Donald Trump on the 30th. So that gave Mark Meadows a chance not to show up pending a ruling from the appeals court. Damn.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, this is breaking.
We can expect his arrest either today or perhaps they'll ask him to surrender on Monday. But what this indictment does, is this now puts this in the court system and under the control of the courts and the judge.
If Steve Bannon were to be convicted of 2 counts of contempt of Congress, is there jail time involved? How much? Is there a fine involved?
30 days.
So each count, Jay, carries with it the possibility of up to 1 year in prison. And yes, there are fines associated with the charge. I would just note, if I were Mark Meadows today, I would be shaking in my boots because he was hoping that this exact situation wouldn't exactly happen. And now it's showing, those that would take the same path not to do so.
Yeah, but they did so. So, okay, here are the fines, the money fines. It's $100 to $1,000. And he's charged with 2 counts of defying a subpoena, right? Contempt, two contempt charges. So $1,000. And the minimum if he's convicted, is 30 days, and the maximum is 1 year. So Steve Bannon could owe $2,000, and he could be sentenced to 2 years in jail. 2 years, I guess, in federal prison, because it's a federal crime, right? I guess. But they will arrest him today or Monday. Maybe they'll give him the weekend to go get drunk or whatever he does, right? Because, it's so in the indictment, I have it. It says Stephen K. Bannon, who was indicted today by a federal grand jury on 2 counts of contempt of Congress stemming from his failure to comply with a subpoena issued by the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. Bannon, 67, is charged with 1 contempt count involving his refusal to appear for a deposition and another involving his refusal to produce documents despite a subpoena from the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. An arraignment date has not been set in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. So he might be arrested and then arraigned, and then he'll get bail because it's a nonviolent charge, right? But nothing's going to happen until he's adjudicated guilty, which means that you have to have a trial. So all this, Mark Meadows is shaking in his boots thing, I don't think so. I mean, I just don't. But this is why I say the House should enforce its own subpoenas. Because if the House enforced its own subpoena, then the day that Steve Bannon decided to be contemptuous of the subpoena and not show up, we could have sent a U.S. Marshal, or actually it would have been the Sergeant at Arms, could have gone and arrested Steve Bannon and put him in jail until he decided to comply. That's a better deal. And Mark Meadows never would have not shown up today. But because the House chooses not to enforce its own subpoenas and goes to the judicial branch, a separate branch of government, then the Department of Justice has to convene a grand jury, present them with evidence, then they indict Steve Bannon, which happened today. Then Steve Bannon will be arrested sooner or later, like either Friday afternoon, maybe on Monday, we don't know. And then it'll be set for, an arraignment. He'll make his plea, and then, it'll go to trial unless he pleads guilty. So that's what I'm saying. Congress really needs to enforce its own subpoenas, and Congress can do that. It's on the books. It's a legitimate use of its congressional power. In fact, if you read the last time that the House used its power of inherent contempt, meaning it enforced its own contempt subpoena, it was a long time ago. It was 1927, but nothing has, challenged that ruling from the Supreme Court that clearly said that if Congress gave up that power to enforce its own subpoenas, then their subpoenas would mean nothing. And I'm all for that. I'm all for, Congress enforcing its own subpoenas so that they mean something. And people don't think that they could be in the 5th level of the justice system, the elite, well-connected level, where they can defy subpoenas, where they cannot appear, when they've been ordered to appear, when they can blow off a deposition because they feel like it. I'm sorry. I'm just so tired of that level of our system of justice. And the way to change it is for Congress to enforce its own subpoenas and get rid of that special privileged level in our justice system. And then we'll only have 4 justice systems. We'd only have the black one, the white one, the rich one, and the poor one. Casey in West Palm.
Hey, how you doing, Randy? Long time since I spoke to you. How you been?
How you?
Not too bad. Just, I don't know what to say anymore. I mean, you don't
believe
everything you say and everything like that, but I'm scared what's going to happen in the midterms and going forward. Again, I'm not against Biden or anything like that, but it's like, I get it that he got, seniors hearing aids and little things like that, but that's not what the American people, they want. I mean, that's not enough.
Right.
And he fumbled the ball. Black Americans right now are not happy with him that he has not done nothing with a filibuster. And he is going to hang himself.
You're right.
Until then.
You're right. And I don't blame them one damn bit, because if not for Jim Clyburn from South Carolina endorsing Biden and getting out the African-American vote in this country for Joe Biden when he really needed it at the last minute, Joe Biden would not have made, he would not have been the nominee. There's no way. That's just a gimme. And all they want, all that African-American voters want in this country is the Voting Rights Act. That's what they want. And they deserve it, just like we deserve it, just like everyone in this country who is a citizen and eligible to vote deserves to have their vote protected. And the Freedom to Vote Act has been blocked 3 times. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act was just blocked. And they have, I'm furious too. Anybody who cares about small d democracy is furious.
You know what this reminds me of is when Obama reached across the aisle when they said, we're going to make you a one-term president. He kept reaching across the aisle, He's doing the same thing. They did not learn their lesson from what happened during Obama. The conservatives want their white nationalist utopia they always wanted, and they're getting it. Whether it's when the kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, whoever his name, and it's scary that this kid is going to get off, and all these wannabe armchair patriots are going to sit there and say, "Oh, look, I can do that too." Now, I'm going to shoot them black people. Now, I got, and that's what they're going to do.
That's what's wrong. That's exactly what's wrong. That's exactly what we were all talking about in the lead up to this election. We were saying we needed justice reform. We needed justice reform. We needed our voting rights protected. We needed, and we were very practical and pragmatic about the solutions to our difficult problems. They were very basic. These were not big asks. These were basic asks. We understand that after the election, it was a razor-thin majority, but carve out the Voting Rights Act from the filibuster. Carve it out and pass it, and show your strength. Show that you have the power to move legislation, and move it.
I mean, honestly, I think Biden can cure cancer before the second term, and he's going to lose.
Yeah, I hear you. I get it. I totally, I hear you. I feel you. I understand it too. I understand.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, so Jonathan Karl is the chief Washington correspondent for ABC News, and he has a book out called Betrayal, and he got to sit down with Donald Trump to, interview him for this book, and recorded it, as all reporters do. If you've ever been interviewed, there's always a tape recorder on the table. Now it's an iPhone, but it's tape recording you, and they tell you that you're being recorded, and they do it so that they can quote you accurately. And Jonathan Karl got a little admission from Donald Trump about Mike Pence and what went on at the Capitol, which is the reason why Steve Bannon was indicted today. He was indicted for being in contempt of Congress for a subpoena to come and testify about what he knew about the insurrection, the organization, the war room that they had at the Willard Hotel. Right? Now, remember, Steve Bannon's been pardoned by Donald Trump. Roger Stone, who was at the Willard Hotel, pardoned by Donald Trump. Bernie Kerik, who was at the Willard Hotel, pardoned by Donald Trump. I mean, these are all, offenders. These are all convicted offenders who have been pardoned by Donald Trump. And now Steve Bannon's going to get arrested again because he doesn't want to talk about Donald Trump. It's really sick. But anyway, this is how we got here. We got here because of the January 6th insurrection. And so Jonathan Karl asked, were you worried about Mike Pence during that siege? Were you worried about his safety? And Trump says, no, I thought he was well protected. And I heard that he was in good shape. No, because I heard he was in very good shape, which means Donald Trump was talking to somebody that understood that Mike Pence was 30 seconds away from being attacked, right? He knew that. Anyway.
Those chants, that was terrible. I mean,
he could have, the people were very angry.
We're saying hang Mike
Because
Pence.
it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. He's still doing the big lie. I mean, this is the point. This is the point at which you can say that Donald Trump is delusional, that Donald Trump is checked out, that Donald Trump is not in touch with reality. He believes that he won this election. And I don't know why he believes it. I don't know if he's mentally deficient. I don't know if it's because he surrounds himself with yes men. I don't know if it's because Bannon's telling him that he did, or Stone, or anybody is telling him that he did. Because, I just played you Bannon saying we're going to take over the school boards. We're going to take over all the elections. We're going to take over. And we took over in Virginia, and that's how Youngkin won. Oh, by the way, Glenn Youngkin was asked about his 17-year-old son. What is with their 17-year-olds? These adults in the Republican Party cannot control their 17-year-olds. Yeah, they asked Glenn Youngkin this week about his 17-year-old son who tried to vote twice, and was not eligible to vote because he's 17.
Reports of your son trying to vote in this election. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah, it was just silliness. I think there's real confusion on where a 17-year-old can vote or not, and
there's confusion.
And so he had a friend who suggested that he might be able to vote. He went up and asked. I know my son really was incredibly respectful young man, and he presented his ID, and when they said he couldn't vote, he said okay, and he went to school. So. I am a little bit frustrated that it's become, the media paid so much attention to it. It's my 17-year-old son, and I really would like everybody to leave my family alone.
Control your freaking 17-year-old son who tried to vote for you twice, by the way. There's no confusion in this country about eligibility to vote. There's no confusion. Now leave my family alone. Hunter Biden's laptop. Leave my family alone. Ashley Biden had her diary stolen, and they think it was stolen by O'Keefe from Project Veritas. I mean, they're questioning him now, too. Leave my son alone. These people, the nerve of them is just, it's endless. And it's because we have 5 systems of justice. And guys like Glenn Youngkin and his family fall into the rich justice category. Now the well-connected, rich kid justice category, right? Rick in L.A.
Hey, Randy, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you about the ability of Congress to enforce its own subpoenas and to send the Sergeant of Arms out to arrest the person who's in contempt of a subpoena or fails to comply with a subpoena. Unfortunately, I think it's very narrow. It's a very narrow power to do that.
Why do you think that?
Find the person. Well, the ability of the Sergeant at Arms is limited to the federal zone in D.C.
Now,
so
I've heard that, but I've never seen any ruling like that. I've had callers before tell me that the Sergeant at Arms can't go off the premises, but there are cases where the Sergeant at Arms arrested a person in another state in our history. So I don't know where that came from, but I know that is thought. I won't say commonly thought, but I know that there are some people in this audience that think that, and I don't know why.
So what cases are you talking about where they went out of state to arrest somebody, the Sergeant at Arms? I mean, I would think it sounds like a U.S. Marshal kind of task. To me anyway,
let's say. I think there's 1795, and then there's one in 1800, and there's one in 1812. One was in South Carolina. There was another newspaper editor. There's a bunch of them, and I don't know. I didn't look them all up. I didn't know what you wanted to talk about, right? But you can look it up. Okay. You can look it up, and I don't know why people think that he's limited to just the D.C. area, because I don't think that's true.
Okay, well, maybe you're right. I mean, but as a practical matter, the inherent contempt really hasn't been used for almost 100 years, and it kind of becomes a kind of an unofficial policy to just go and seek judicial contempt, go and file get an indictment, and then go through the court system.
That's not been adjudicated either. That's what I'm saying. It's just not. And the Supreme Court, found in 1961 and in 1975, and in other cases. I'll just read you the original, the 18. I guess it's 1790s. Contempt of Congress is considered an implied power of the legislature. The Anderson v. Dunn, 1821, Supreme Court of the United States held that Congress's power to hold someone in contempt was essential to ensure that Congress was not exposed to every indignity and interruption that rudeness, caprice, or even conspiracy may mediate against it. They considered bribery of a senator or representative contempt of Congress. 1857, Congress enacted a law that made contempt of Congress a criminal offense against the United States. There was an airmail scandal of 1934. William McCracken, Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Aeronautics, sentenced to 10 days of detention for destroying evidence under subpoena. I don't know why we've come to accept that Congress doesn't have the power to enforce its own subpoenas. It makes no sense to me. Why would you give them subpoena power and no ability to enforce the subpoena? It just makes no sense.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, so the big breaking news for today, Steve Bannon has been indicted by a grand jury that apparently was convened by Merrick Garland to hear the evidence about whether or not he was in contempt of Congress 2 times, one for documents that were subpoenaed and one for an appearance that he was subpoenaed to, attend a deposition. And the grand jury said, yes, the evidence is there, and they indicted him. And so Steve Bannon is going to have to be arrested. We don't know if he'll be arrested today. We don't know if he'll be arrested Monday. But then he'll be arraigned, and he will probably be free to go based on, bail or some such thing, because it's a nonviolent thing to be in contempt of Congress. Unless, of course, you're an insurrectionist and you beat a police officer with your crutches or with a flagpole. Or with, fire extinguisher, whatever. So then it will be set for trial, and then Steve Bannon will get his day in court. I'm guessing a year, 2 years, whatever. And that's called a tactic. Running out the clock is the exact tactic. And the reason why the Bannons of the world and the Meadows of the world and the Trumps of the world feel like they could run out the clock is because come November 2022, we will have an election. And if, even though inflation is being caused by corporations, seriously, corporations who are saying, let's make a bet. Let's make a bet that shoppers will keep paying higher prices. And I know this because it was in the Wall Street Journal. And the name of the article in the Wall Street Journal was U.S. Companies Bet Shoppers Will Keep Paying Higher Prices. And then there's another, complimentary article in the New York Times that is called Americans Are Flush with Cash and Jobs. They also think the economy is awful. Because psychologically, the idea of paying more because corporations can make us pay more now, and they are making us pay more now because they want to make us pay more now because they know we have more cash now. They know we have better wages So they're fueling this inflation. They're doing, and plus we do have supply chain issues because of the pandemic. But come 2022, we're going to have an election. And if people still think that the economy is awful, even though they're flush with cash and jobs, they will change Congresses. And if we change and the Republicans, who are only, 5 seats away in the House from having the majority, and 1 seat away in the Senate from having the majority, if we change Congresses, you can just best bet that that is the end of the Select Committee on January 6th on the attack. It'll be over. And that's why they're running out the clock. And that's why I'm telling you that we need to be more expeditious in the application of our laws. And in our laws, there remains a tool in the toolbox unused. Now, just ask yourself, if Donald Trump were president and the situation was reversed and he was going after Joe Biden, which clearly he would, and somebody was telling him that, Joe Biden didn't show up, or Joe Biden's son didn't show up, or, some Biden didn't show up after they were subpoenaed by Congress to show up, believe me, he would be telling McCarthy, who would be, oh God, help us, Speaker of the House, to use inherent contempt to go arrest Joe Biden. Mary in California.
Hi, Randy. The indictment of Steve Bannon has made me really renew my faith in Merrick Garland.
Oh, good.
I'm so happy to hear that. A few weeks ago, you kind of laughed when Steve Bannon said something about 100 years of Republican rule, and you thought that was kind of funny. That is true. That is what they've been working for, and there are articles in The Hill from November of 14. Goes down all the way down to August of 07. I found articles from HuffPost that they're talking about a permanent Republican majority. This article from it referred, one of them referred to, oh no, I can't find it. It's an Oregon.
That happens. That happens all the time, Mary.
Yeah. And and I think this all started, this 100-year plan started with Reagan. And they're well on their way.
And there's another plan that's in full operation, and that plan is the Unitary Executive Plan, and that really started with Reagan, but it actually progressed a great deal under W. Okay, where the president has all this power and the other branches have none.
Yeah.
And that's why it freaks me out so hard that Congress is not utilizing the power that was granted to it in the Constitution to enforce their own subpoenas that would expedite all kinds of matters that need their attention now, because if we change Congresses in 2022, you can just best believe Donald Trump and his insurrectionists and the Willard, guys were in the war room, and Bannon and Stone and Carrick and all these dirty guys who needed pardons in the first place, they'll all get off scot-free with an insurrection. I mean, that word has lost its power because it happened. Used to be able to...
Absolutely.
You used to say the word insurrection. Yeah. People couldn't even imagine what it would look like, but it just sounded like an anti-constitutional thing, and that would be up there with treason in people's minds. Well, now it's happened, and because we say it, it has no meaning anymore, and people are like, so what? It was an insurrection, so what?
And they all need to go. They all need to go down. And I wish
they tried to.
It needs to happen immediately.
They tried to overturn the results of a free and fair election, meaning they tried to take away your vote. They literally tried to do a crime against every American who voted, every single one who voted. And if they could do it once, they can do it again. And next time, it might not be the candidate that you want.
And I haven't heard anybody on any station say anything about this permanent Republican majority, this 100 years of Republican rule, ever since I heard it, 15 years ago or whenever it was. Haven't heard that from anybody yet.
Yeah.
Repeating that.
Okay.
I don't think the general public knows about it.
Well, look, they have been on this road to Gomorrah for a really long time, and they'll get there by any means necessary, any means at all, including violence now, okay? So when they saw that they were going to lose, or at least get set back in their plan of being a permanent majority, when they saw that the American people weren't down with their plan, they decided that they would, support the overthrow of the election, the actual overthrow of the government. And still to this minute, you don't have any Republicans except for Kinzinger and Liz Cheney say that the election was free and fair. You have senators, you have House members sitting on television being asked point blank on serious Sunday shows, whether or not they believe this was a free and fair election, and they won't answer the question. They won't answer it.
Yeah.
So
they don't. It's like they don't even say no, it wasn't. They just won't answer at all.
Right. They say, listen, he was free to go and challenge it in court. I mean, they will dance around it, but they will not say, yes, Biden is the legitimately elected president and he won 7 million more votes and, tons of electoral college votes. And, they won't say it. They won't say it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nefarious. It's really ugly. And the issue isn't who the actual winner was, even though we know who the actual winner was, and the actual winner was the current president, Joe Biden. The issue is that they were willing to use violence to try to overturn the result. And for about 5 minutes, they were appalled. For 5 minutes, they were freaked out, right? For 5 minutes, McCarthy went to the floor. The president is responsible for this. And Mitch McConnell, the president is responsible for this. And you can't have that. And now, total silence. Because they think maybe he's going to get away with it. And if he can get away with it, then they can do it again. Because they've learned lessons. And they won't be as clunky about it. They won't be as careless about it. In fact, they will change the laws in the states, right? So the state legislatures can overturn the results of the election if they don't like the results there. And that's how they'll do it. Yeah, it's an ugly crowd. It's a very, very ugly crowd with no respect for the people. None. And it's supposed to be a government for and by the people. Oh, they laugh. They laugh.